Well, Disguise and our friend Adi are going to take you through what he did with a really special short film that has won all sorts of awards. So let's have a New York NAB hand for Adi from Disguise.
Okay, thanks, Lori. Hi, NAB New York. How are you? I'm Adi with Disguise, and I'm really excited to share this project with you. So let me get this mic here. Okay, awesome. So before I talk about the short film, I want to talk about Disguise and what we do. There's a few of us here. So we run a global tech platform. So we make the servers, the software, the plugins, the integrations, the technology for stages around the world, specifically LED volumes. And we do a lot of the nuts and bolts of what it takes to make virtual production happen. So things like 2D playback, 2.5D, which is layering 2.5D, 3D game engines like Unreal, and then color workflows and so on. So all of these things work under a Disguise platform, and that's how we power a ton of our customers around the world. And at the core of everything we do, we have our software, which is called Designer. So it's a show control software, and it actually runs most major concerts on the planet. So if you just came out of a Taylor Swift concert, that's a Disguise-powered concert, or Adele, or Justin Bieber. So most major concerts on Earth run Disguise, and now we're powering a lot of film and TV and broadcast as well. Disguise integrates to practically anything. So we have over 1,500 tech integrations. I have just some of the stuff listed here. So any sort of LED panel, LED processor, game engine, any kind of camera tracking technology, it'll all work with Disguise. All of the plugins that we build is meant to sort of play in this open ecosystem. And just looking at our footprint around the world, we have 120 stages around the world that do film and TV. So these are specifically scripted content, things like commercials or TV episodes, shots and films. And you could see there's quite a bit of footprint, not just in Asia and Europe, but also here in America. If you count all of our customer stages, so we have a lot of stages that are much, much smaller, things that go into corporate lobbies or into theme parks. And if you count all that up, we're at about 350 customers around the world. So we power a lot of other people's stages, and we support them, and that's how they make their shows or their content. Okay, now switching gear into Space Rider, I want to quickly play this video for you that'll give you a better sense of what we did, and then I'll talk you through it.
Virtual production just brings this magic to life in front of your eyes. I'm Jeff Kenji Yamashita, and I'm the director of the short film Space Rider. Space Rider is a sci-fi action-adventure short shot in 5 days on one virtual production stage with a limited budget. The idea for the short first came up when I was talking to Adi Ghani, the VP of Virtual Production at Disguise. He said we could have access to a 180 LED volume for exactly 5 days, and he asked if I had any ideas for a test shoot. I teamed up with a writer, Vivian Yoon, and we brought the story to life. Our greatest assets were the Disguise-powered VP stage with Row LED panels and Unreal Engine by Epic Games. We didn't have a lot of time for previs or test shoots, so Vivian and I decided to build the script around virtual set pieces that felt big but could be built quickly, using pre-existing assets from the Unreal Marketplace and Quixel Megascans. Space Rider features over 15 virtual environments, and this is where Disguise and Unreal were so important, because using them together meant we could adjust those virtual environments in real time on set. Our incredible DP, Chris Darnell, worked closely with our virtual art department and disguise operator to match lighting in real time. From the beginning, our goal with this project was to see what we could create in 5 days with a small team and minimal prep time. Once our 5 days were up, we moved right into post-production, where we worked with an extremely talented editor/VFX supervisor, Randy Nagata, and 2 VFX artists, including Carlos Perez from Disguise. And that was it. We wanted to show what is possible using Disguise and Unreal Engine. And once this technology is in more people's hands, more filmmakers will be able to explore new worlds and new types of storytelling without a massive studio budget. In this world, anything is possible.
Thank you. So it was a humble, small project. It wasn't a big budget project, and that was exactly the point. You know, we have customers around the world that have multi-million-dollar budgets, and they could use this technology, make a few mistakes, and they have the money to cover those mistakes up. But what about for the rest of us that don't have that luxury? How do we actually use this technology at a very limited budget at an indie level? So that was the experiment. And the other aspect of the experiment was we have an entire learning program called the Accelerator. And in order for us to teach this effectively, we actually needed to do this ourselves. So we can learn from all of this and then teach it. And that's exactly what we're doing. We have an accelerated program that's now all over the world. We have one actually here in New York. We have one in LA and London and Korea, Japan, and soon in Latin America. I could keep going. All right, so the story is Space Rider is very much inspired by Cowboy Bebop and Blade Runner. Our director, Jeff Kenji Yamashita, is half Japanese, so it had a big anime influence. We knew we wanted to make a story that was fun and relatable and not necessarily dark and gritty. So we just went to make something super entertaining. And I have the trailer for you here. It's just 1 minute long, gives you a nice glimpse of the movie.
Every beast I've pursued, I've captured, except one.
Well. Look who it is. They'll come after you, you know. I know.
Excellent. That was all original score, so we actually had a composer build the entire score from scratch because that's exactly what we want to do and just push it in all different directions. So as of now, as of today, we have about 15 official selections from some of the film festivals that you see here. So it's doing really well on the film festival circuit. And then on the nominations and wins, we have right here in New York Cinematography Awards. We won across the board. That was a really nice one. In Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Film Arts, we have a semi-finalist spot, some finalist spots there. So it's doing great. And that for us is a big sign of relief. It means we actually made something using this experimental technology that actually applies to traditional filmmaking. And these film festivals, what do the recognitions really mean? Well, it means you can actually tell a story using all this technology. It shouldn't be about the LED volume or disguise servers. It should really be about the creative, and that's exactly what we've achieved. And for indie level budgets, VFX is not something you could typically put into your shows. In those instances, virtual production actually makes more sense. It's more cost effective. And then finally, you can have a bigger scope, a bigger vision for your film using the same amount of money if you use VP. So at a very top level, we had about 20 people that we hired. They're all freelancers, and we spent about $200,000. It wasn't a lot of money. Some of that was in-kind services, so we have our own stage. We didn't have to pay for our stage and so on. And there was only 5 days on set where we shot the entire 13-minute film, and then we worked on post-production in about 28 weeks. We did the math, and over traditional VFX, we saved about 40%, and that gave us sort of the bigger scope that we wanted. Here's the timeline here. So you could see at the very beginning, we spent a couple of weeks just concepting the show, right? These are script development, storyboarding, and things that are very typical of any production. And then we spent about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks on previs. So building the Unreal assets and then building the 3D environments and so on. 1 week of shoot, just 5 business days. And then we're in post world, VFX world for about 4 months. And that's only because we had a very small crew. If the crew was bigger, this timeline would be even more compressed. Some of the strengths that we had on our team was we knew how to leverage an LED volume. We were all Unreal Engine people from our past jobs, so we were very comfortable in a stage. And we were all LA based. I know it's the same thing here in New York. When you're in a community with other filmmakers, you can actually hire your friend or your friend's friend, and there is a sort of close-knit community you can rely on. So being LA based for us is actually a key advantage. Some of the big unknowns for us was green screen workflows. So this is stuff that's very traditional, very OG, and quite frankly, we didn't know how to green screen correctly. We did use some green screen shots in our movie using an LED volume, and those shots for us were a little bit more challenging because it's just not something we're used to. We also were completely new to live action, so we have our backgrounds in animation and Unreal Engine and real time, but when it came to physical shooting with actual lights, actual lenses, actual cameras, those are all new for us, and we learned on the spot. So we devised a strategy, a production strategy to do this correctly because we knew our strengths and we knew our weaknesses. So for live action, so we made sure everything we shoot in that entire 13-minute film was going to be on set. So that 5 days was the entire movie. We didn't go on location. We just didn't know how to. We didn't have the permitting knowledge or, quite frankly, the money to go on location. And we wanted to maximize the use of Unreal Engine, so we built all the worlds in Engine using marketplace assets. This is something you could do very, very easily, and we did it very cost effectively. You know, if you go on the marketplace, you can buy, for example, a planet for $40, a star system for $50, and so on. So that's how we're able to build space from each individual items. So I actually go through that later in my presentation. And then finally, after the shoot, our VFX strategy was to achieve final pixel in Unreal. So most VFX workflows will go into a package like Cinema 4D or Redshift or Arnold, and those are traditional renderers. Although they are superior in result, they cost a lot more money because you have to spend more time, hire more artists, and so on. For us, we already knew Unreal, so we used it during the previs, during the shoot, and then also during post, so all the way through. And we embraced green screen. So this is something I talked about. Some of the shots that were just not possible and we weren't prepared enough because we were just moving so fast, we just reverted to green screen and blue screen because it's better to get that shot in the can than to come back and reshoot it. And we didn't have any reshoot budget. And even taking a step back from the production strategy, the overall show strategy for us is to just really embrace the experiment. Like we all knew, the director, the writer, myself, we all knew this is just one giant experiment. You shouldn't shoot an entire film in a VP volume. We don't recommend that. We did it because we could. And I think we came out successful. So we embraced the experiment. And also, we wanted to treat the IP like it existed before, right? So what if a studio comes to you, gives you Star Wars to make? You would have to protect it and treat it in the way that is recreated on other Star Wars films, right? You have to recreate the world a certain way. You have to have this lore follow through and so on. So we treated Space Rider like it already existed. And so this could tie into future episodes or films. And then finally, we sort of figured out the number for a full season of Space Rider. Although this is a 13-minute film, we really wanted the scope of a whole season. So we actually wrote the story out for 10 episodes if we end up making it. Excellent. So moving on to the nuts and bolts of production. So I want to talk about people. And the core team was really here. It's the director, Jeff, and writer, Vivian, who also assisted with AD. And then I was the executive producer on it. And then we had Chris Darnell as our DP. And then we had a production supervisor. So this was basically the core team. So it's sort of a mix of creative and management at the same time. During the pre-production phase, those 6 weeks, we ramped up and we had several Unreal artists. So we had a primary Unreal artist who was building the worlds very, very quickly. And then a secondary Unreal artist that would come in and refine those worlds. So it's like rough building, pass it, and then the second person fine builds it, if that makes sense. On set, we had a disguise operator. So our technology is really done by one person. So in the biggest stages of the world, you only need one disguise operators. In the smallest stages of the world, still just one operator. And that, for us, was Eli. And then we actually had a specific production designer who built this world to the style that our creatives wanted. Here's a quick overview of our team during those 5 days. So I think I'm missing a couple people here, but it's about 20 people. And you can see that the roles there are very much like the roles you know. The only new thing is going to be that yellow segment, which is the virtual production team. So you have a VP soup, you have a LED technician, primary Unreal artist, disguise operator, and so on. But everything else is the roles you already know, right? Like a DP has an AC or a DIT, a gaffer has, help associated with his role or her role. So there's nothing ordinary other than this new team that we added. Here is the picture of our team during a shoot. So yeah, that's about all of us. We were at the tail end of 2022, so we were still wearing masks because of COVID protocol. And then finally on the volume control team, because I knew Unreal and knew Disguise enough, I was able to supervise that entire volume control team. We hired another Disguise operator. We had the Unreal artist from the previous side now join the on-set team. And then we also had an LED technician to quickly build or put down the LED walls. And then after we got done with the shoot, we ramped up in post-production. So these are very typical roles, right? So we had an editor / post supervisor, Randy, and then we had a VFX artist who was very talented, Carlos. And then I helped Carlos with some of the Unreal work. And then we hired a colorist as well as a sound composer. And the sound that you hear, all of that was made by the composer. He also supervised the sound, added Foley. So we were all wearing many different hats. And for indie productions, this is very normal. One person does 3 different things. And that's how you really get to that high level of scope with minimal budget. So if you look at the distribution across the entire production lifecycle, you see a spike during the shoot. We're at about 20 people during the shoot. But for the rest of the time, it was only 5 people. So super simple, super easy team. I think anybody can put a team like this together with small budget, right? So this is not rocket science. And this small team leveraged that technology to make the thing that you saw. Okay, so in pre-production, just some of the things that we ran into was at the very beginning, this is a very normal process of, storyboarding your stuff out. Everybody does this now. And then the thing that we added was what's real, not real portion. So for example, in this board here, the green stuff is real and practical. So we had real foliage. And then the brown stuff is LED volume. So typically the background is always going to be LED volume, and then foreground stuff is going to be real. And we're going to place the actor in the middle. We also set an origin point. So on the left image, that's the actual stage we shot everything on. You see the 000 point is that yellow dot. that matched up with the Unreal set, that matched up with Disguise. And these three things had to be consistent all across, because when you're building a world and it's 200 feet tall versus 6 feet tall, things just look different, and no amount of lensing and focal length is going to save you. So you have to build everything to scale. And then we also took an additional step of using some LiDAR scans. It sounds fancy, but we just used an iPad like app like Polycam. You can quickly scan an object, bring it into Unreal, and now you have a one-to-one scale correlation. So on the right, you have an Unreal representation of that picture on the left, and those things are exactly the same size. Our actor is 6'2" there, 6'2" there, and so on. Okay, on the mood board side, this is very common of a typical production. So, at the very beginning, before you're even building Unreal worlds, you're looking through Google Images, and nowadays Midjourney, right? So you're generating these images just to get a look and feel for what that world will look like. And over here, we had a very good idea, the director and the writer did. So we gathered all that. Then we moved into asset exploration. So once you have your mood boards done, then you move into, okay, what are the actual assets that I'm going to purchase to build this world in? So these are things that exist in 3D that we just bought. And then finally, we started to run everything on Disguise. The advantage here is when you run things on Disguise, you can quickly switch out your content. So for us, it was 12 or 15 different Unreal scenes while leaving the stage alone. This is a very important decoupling. It takes a lot of time in a traditional stage to switch your scenes over. Sometimes it could take a whole day. And we didn't have that time. For us, time is money. We only have 5 days to make that entire movie. So for us to quickly be able to switch out the Unreal environments, the lenses, calibrations, those things, those nuts and bolts of a stage, that's where Disguise performed. And quite frankly, we couldn't have done the movie without it, with the budget that we had. And again, this is a VP Native project. We shot the entire thing on a volume, and we completely committed to creating everything in Unreal and iterating on that in Unreal. And finally, I want to bring attention to kit bashing, which is the art of taking a bunch of different assets and building something entirely new. It's as if somebody gives you a giant box of Legos and the Lego sets don't match, but you end up using them anyway to create something brand new. It's exactly that with digital assets. Here's that planet asset I was talking about. It's only $40. And this was what was used for a lot of the spaceship shots. And we achieved Final Pixel in Unreal by knowing what you can and cannot do. So Unreal is not really good at particles, not yet, or fire or clouds and things like that. So we tried to avoid those things, and we add those things in 2D. And then we did all of the backgrounds in Unreal, which it's really good at. So if you're doing like a mountain, it's going to look fantastic. We were not afraid to use 2D on top of what we achieved. So in this case, the top is the original frame that we captured. The snow we added in 2D. After Effects has some incredible plugins, and the laser was added in 2D. And the bottom frame there, that hologram that he's swiping, that was all added in After Effects. Why build that stuff in Unreal? It's too complicated. Just do it in After Effects. It's way cheaper. It's way faster. And here is a frame from the movie. So these are just some of the assets that were kit bashed. So I have, the nebula, the pink cloud thing. That's one asset. The lens flare itself. Believe it or not, you can buy lens flare. The spaceship is a combination of 3 or 4 different assets. The planet, yep, that's the same planet. And the star is a HDRI map. So it's like a spherical map that wraps around the whole thing. So you could quickly get to a pretty decent level of quality with just marketplace assets. And then this is a frame breakdown. So you saw this frame in the trailer. So at the very front of it, we have practical curtains that kind of cover the left and right side of the frame. So we don't have to set dress that entire thing, saves us money. The very back, those wood beams are digital. So that's coming from the LED wall. The lanterns are practical. Those are real. The bar is real. So you could see how we're mixing and matching digital and physical to make a cohesive, seamless look. Here's another frame breakdown. So this laser that's shooting out of the gun, that's a LED rope. And we just used that because we knew we were going to put VFX on top of it anyway. The costume we spent a little bit of money on. We wanted a certain specific look, so we had a costume designer custom make that costume, because that's really hard to do in VFX and post. You want to get all that stuff, in the practical sense. That whole planet in the back, that's all fake, so that's LED volume stuff. The neat thing here is when you build that world once, you can use it over and over. So on the right is what we use for the shoot, and on the left, we used it for a virtual only shot. So the shot on the left, that tiny human, that's a meta-human, that's a digital human, but it's using the same planet asset in both sense. So you can build it once, and the more you use it, the better return on investment you get, and that's the whole point. Again, on the right is what we shot on set, and on the left is something we made. It's animated, right? So that monster, you didn't see it in the trailer. Spoiler alert, there's a monster in the movie. It's fully animated in Unreal. However, that cave system is repurposed. So it's the same cave that you saw in the trailer. We just use it again in post and VFX. And because you're doing everything Final Pixel, you could repurpose it. All right, I am at the end with 3 minutes. Any questions?
Very great presentation. How many years or months of experience did everybody that worked in Unreal have?
Oh, that's a great question. Learning Unreal depends on intensity. So if you really want to learn it and you're just determined to learn it, you can do it in 6 months. Yeah, they have very comprehensive courses online. It's on YouTube. Other YouTubers make videos on it, so that's possible. Me personally, I have about 5 or 6 years of experience. The other members on the team, maybe 2 to 3 years. I would say in general, we're all new to this.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry if this is a dumb question. Does Unreal Engine do a 360 video?
Yes, so it's not a dumb question, totally valid. You can build your digital world and use a 360 camera inside of Engine to capture it, if that makes sense. Yes.
I have a question for you, because this is being talked about a lot, but would you consider this a 2.5, 3 workflow? That's a conversation that's happening a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid question. So if we were to do that again, this project today, I would rely more on 2.5D. When we kickstarted this project, 2.5D just wasn't there, so we call this a 3D project because it's all in Engine. Yeah.
Somebody else? Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, coming.
We'll come back to you. Yeah.
You say that you wouldn't use VP for full production again, if I heard you correctly. Can you go further into that? Why wouldn't you do a project like this again?
Yeah, VP, well, the story that we built it specifically so we could shoot it all in a stage. But that's a very specific story for a very specific use case. Generally, if you run a studio, your customers will bring you the story, and you have no control over the story. In that sense, not every shot fits in a volume. However, if you have the option and the power to create the story you want, you can maneuver it to be fully effective in a volume. Yep.
Oh, thank you. All right, one more question.
Did you run into any challenges with rendering? I know like sparkly rendering for Final Pixel is a thing. Did you find that?
Absolutely, yes. Achieving Final Pixel in Unreal is a learned curve, and yes, there's a lot of rendering artifacts. However, we used a tool called Movie Render Queue in Unreal that renders each frame like 30 times and then samples it all together. So a lot of those aliasing and artifacting go away. Yep.
Great. I think that's it. That's it for time.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Big hand for Addie. And Addie, where can they learn more about Disguise and your projects? And
Right. I have just the slide. So tonight in Brooklyn, we have an event. We have flyers with the QR code. Please register. So yeah, Zero Space is a customer of ours, and we're doing an incredible. The screening of the movie will happen there. And we also have a panel on a feature film, not an indie feature film, but a proper tier 1 feature film called Daddy-O we're going to be talking about. So if you want to come, please come out tonight.